Mini trucking hasn't died by any means. It's just evolved into something that's more complex now. It's not just, you got your group of truckers that they got primered rides, Pathfinder wheels or whatever not, and then you got the guys they're setting the bar nowadays. I mean, my name is Scott Rupp. I live in Conroe, Texas. I'm a member of Negative Camber Truck Club, and I've been doing this for 42 now. I've been doing it since I was 16. So I'm bad at math, but it's been a while. It's been a long while. I guess my influences come from, I guess you would say my father. He was a mechanic at the time when I was born, and he owned his own service station in Dubuque, Iowa, which is where I'm from. Made a long journey down here. He would, as far as I can remember, the first car I ever remembered that was pretty cool was his Chevelle. He had a 69 396 SS Chevelle, and it was red, black stripes, black interior, and I remember us bombing around in that. My dad worked a lot, and so my mom took me out, and we were living in Texarkana at the time, and we went to Orr Chevrolet, and they had this little 89 S10 sitting there, a little standard cab red, 4-cylinder, 5-speed, 2-wheel drive S10. I was like, that's pretty cool. At the time, I had no idea anything about mini truck and custom trucks, none of that. I knew hot rods, but I didn't know anything custom. And so we got it. And I had shortly gotten my first job after that, and I worked at Safeway Foods was my first job, and there was a kid working there, and he had this little Nissan hardbody extended cab. And at the time, the big thing was they were just lowered with the sticky out wheels as far as you could get them to stick out. So I think this thing had 15 by 10s on it with 205 50s, and it was gray. And then, I got to know him, and then another dude shows up, and I think he came from California, if I'm not mistaken, and he had this little Nissan 720. This thing was bad. I mean, it was like that Porsche Riviera blue, had the scallops down the side. I mean, that thing was painted, and that's really where I got hooked. And so, went down to the local wheel and tire shop, bought my first 10 of 15 by 10 saw blades with the small tires stretched on them, got it home, heated up the coils, took out some leaves, lowered it a little bit. I was doing pretty good. That was back in 1993, long time ago, and we just you got to start somewhere, and that was it. My career with the custom trucks has been a very long, drawn out one. I mean, if I had to guess, I'd probably say my personal vehicles, I've had four features, 2 covers, I've had 5, 2 covers and 3 features. But if I had to add up all the ones where I was involved majorly with a build, I'd probably say it's well over 40. That being due to the fact that I worked for Kustom Werx Auto Body in Conroe, Texas. Corey Scott, a real good friend of mine. I'd worked there for several years, and then my son was born in 2004. And I stepped away from the shop, and I was a stay-at-home dad for a little bit. So Austin got old enough, and then it was time to put him in daycare so he could interact, and then I went back to work for Kustom Werx. And so I had just missed out on that era back in the early 90s. And so I'm like, I got this truck from my buddy Radar, Todd Hendricks, who you've already interviewed, and and at first he didn't even want to sell me the truck. He's like, we go over there one day for something, and I'm like, it's that little Toyota, because I had previously bought an old junker from Radar that's featured in my office. And I was like, what's this little Toyota here? And he's like, nah, not selling it to you. I'm like, fine, whatever. I think a couple months went by, and he called me up, and he's like, hey, all right, I changed my mind. You want to buy this little Toyota? I'm like, I'm on the way. And so me and Corey run over there and go pick up this little Toyota, and I drove it around, I don't know, for a couple weeks until I figured out what I was doing. Had found a camper shell. I'd been wanting a camper shell on a walkthrough. That was the ultimate deal. I wanted to put a whole bunch of speakers in it and just make some noise. And so I found this camper shell on Craigslist for $50 down in League City. I hop in the Toyota, I drive down to League City, sitting in this guy's yard. I hand him his $50. I had brought some vice grips. I threw it on the truck, clamped it down, and I went back home. I'm like, all right, I got a black camper shell, a white beat up truck. It's time. I started doing my research, and I found the Boyds on eBay, brand new in the box. I still have one of the boxes over here. Wanted to keep it because the Boyd boxes, just in general, they're just as nostalgic as the wheels now. So I had the wheels. I paid more for the tires than I paid for the wheels. This truck's not being built for anybody, anything. It wasn't being built for shows, for trophies, for magazines, for shirts, for nothing. It was something I wanted. And through the process of building this truck, I did it at home in my garage when I lived in Spring, Texas. I bagged it, I body dropped it. I did everything to that truck but sew up the seats. I went to the junkyard, I cut up 2 convertible Mustangs, walked up front, the lady's like, what's this? I was like, well, it's parts for a convertible. I don't know how you want to sell them, but I need them. So I got that, went home, cut the roof off that thing, built my own target top, because you can't buy the kits now, and well, the kit was going to leak anyway. So I ended up with the target top, and man, it just snowballed from there. I started ordering paint, took it out to Tomball. We painted it at my buddy Justin Barry's house because he had a shop with a paint booth and everything in it. Mini trucking hasn't died by any means. It's just evolved into something that's more complex now. It's not just, you got your group of truckers that they got primered rides, Pathfinder wheels or whatever not. And then you got the guys they're setting the bar nowadays. I mean, your truck's one of them. That truck is beautiful. The paint jobs, the framework, it's way over the top. And so I had not anticipated all this attention. And ever since that show, every show I went to, there was a crowd, there was questions. All the old school trucks where people were starting to find them, buy back their own old vehicles. That's a real big thing. And just, it evolved full circle from there. Man, that experience of being on the cover of Truckin was unbelievable. It was, you got to understand that when we do the stuff that we do in this industry, it's not really what you know or what you've done, but who you know. And we've always known the right people, so we haven't had a hard time getting a cover or a feature or anything done. But when it happens on its own, the way that did was spectacular. So what had happened was, probably prior to a year before that, Phil Gordon had come into town and he was finishing up a feature for a buddy of mine in San Antonio, and there was, I think, 4 or 5 of the rest of us that we grabbed our trucks and we tagged along, and he shot all of them, and they were like, I was the last one to be done, and the little Toyota. And so we end up at LST, and you had come up to me and you're like, hey, Mike Alexander's, I got to go get my truck, man. Mike wants to do this little photo shoot thing. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. I've done so many photo shoots. I was just like, okay, cool. It's another photo shoot, Hindsight being though, I didn't realize that, Mike was shooting it for Truckin at the time. And it wasn't until after Mike had started shooting it, I'm like, well, Phil already shot the truck for Truckin, but Mike's, and so I called Phil and Mike, and we had this circle thing going on, and I'm like, what's going on, So we got this group together, and we go down after LST, and we start shooting, and Mike's doing his thing, and whatnot. And then it wasn't till after all that was being done that it was like, oh, hey, yeah, by the way, we're shooting this for Truckin Cover. And I'm like, well, that's cool, because, you know, I hadn't asked nobody. I was invited to go to it. And so it had went on from there. Well, luck be my lady, they had reached out to Phil. No coincidence at the current time and moment. I was like, Phil, you got anything old school for this issue we're doing? And he's like, oh, man, I don't know. I mean, I got this little black and pink Toyota, and they just, and I'm like, okay, yeah, no, we just shot that truck. It's on the cover. We got it. And so I'm like, well, son of a bitch, I've got me another cover truck out of nowhere for a truck that I think I had $8,000 in it, Jeremy. I mean, I built it on the cheap, dude, but I got a cover out of it, a feature. I got a show shirt at Scraping the Coast one year. I mean, trophies out the wazoo for it. For a truck that was never anticipated to be anything more than just something that if we could go back in time, we were 16 years old and we could have what we wanted, this would have been what I wanted. And there wasn't anything behind it other than that's why it was called Just for Fun, because I had only built it for fun. It wasn't high dollar. It wasn't anything special about it other than it was mine, you know. And I had the best time building that truck, you know. And to this date, I tell people, you know, you hear all these stories and everybody has something to say, but at the end of the day, I tell them, you know, you need to build this truck. Whatever you're building, you need to build it for yourself. Don't worry about anybody else on the planet, because they ain't got to pay for it. They ain't got to drive it. They ain't got to wash it. They ain't got to do nothing to it. They just got to look at it. You've got to be in it. And so everything I've done since then has been for me and not the general crowd, because it's, you know, I've been around doing this for quite a while, and we have other trucks that we could talk about that, you know, but that's the story behind the Truckin Cover, and man, it was an amazing one. I've been doing it so long now that, you know, I say burnout, but, you know, at the same time, you know, addiction can be a lot of different things. Drug users are, you know, they're addicted, but they're, you know, it's just the high. Us, it's just what we do every day. We don't know any better. We do it. Our wives get sucked into it. Our kids get sucked into it. Our dogs, our neighbors, everybody gets sucked into it. I wouldn't have done or be where I'm at today without certain people to give me guidance over the years. My boy Corey Scott, Justin Berry, Dustin McElwee. He's probably one of my closest, dearest friends. My wife has probably been my biggest supporter since day one. And if you had time and you could do just another video, she could give you just as much insight as I have today in the custom truck scene. And, you know, without my wife, I couldn't do any of this. Number one, because she's the bank, you know. I don't know how many guys actually do it, but I actually go out and I will say something to her first before I do it. I don't just go buy shit, is what people think I do. Hey, babe, this and that, you know, what do you think? You know, I get a sigh, or I'll get a look, or I'll get, yeah, that's cool, you know, but through everything, and we were married for 15 years since April 4th, and, you know, she's been there the entire time. So she would be my biggest supporter. That is the end with me today. Please go to BuiltToCruise and like and subscribe. These are very awesome people, and they're doing something amazing with our culture, and there's not much more I can say about it.